Alright, I think I found something I can use for packing. So I'm going to reassemble the carburetor. What I got is I went to the hardware store and I took the packing nut and load needle with me. And I searched through the Midwest Fastener assortments of various items. And I came up with this little rubber. This is actually a grommet. So this actually would be used in like where you would put a, say if you had a hole in a metal chassis for a wire to go through and you wanted to have something that kept the whole sharp edges of the metal hole from cutting into the wire. You might use something like this. Let me get this off of here. Try and give you a better look at this. So that's what it looks like. It's got that slot there because this would actually pop through the hole, and the thin metal case of the metal box, electrical box, would basically sit in that groove, and then the wire would go through the middle there. Now what's nice about this is the idea of that hole fits tightly around the needle here, and this OD, I found that I was able to push that in and get it to kind of pop into that void that's left behind from where I dug all the packing out. So I'm going to see whether or not this is going to work. So basically I'm going to push this down in there and pop it into position, and then I'm going to get this whole assembly in there. But first I got to tell you a quick story about this packing. In order to try and find the right thing, O-ring or whatever, to make this work, I needed to take this with me to the hardware store. So I took the whole thing with me to the hardware store. I go in the hardware store, I settle on this little grommet, go up to the register, I pay for the grommet, I put the grommet on here like this so I won't lose it. Put it in my pocket. I come home that afternoon and I realize I got to work on the brakes on my truck. So this is going to involve crawling around under the truck, and I didn't want this sharp thing in my pocket. So I take it out of my pocket and I went over to a utility trailer that I have, and I opened the side door, and on the floor right when I open the door I have some of my tools and stuff from when I was working on the truck the day before. So I think what I must have done is I must have put this down on the floor in the trailer. Nearest I could figure, that's what I did with it, and meant to go back and get it later. Well, got tied up with the truck, worked on the truck for a couple days, running back and forth to the auto parts store, this and that. Well, time goes by and I decide I'm going to put the carburetor back together. I go and find the bowl assembly. I still left it in the truck. And I start to look for this. And I start looking everywhere. Completely forgot about what I did with it. Tore all three trucks apart 3 times looking for it. Went through all my pants. Went through, the dirty laundry. Talked to the wife, asked her whether or not, because she always goes through my pockets before she puts anything in the wash, because she knows I got all kinds of stuff in there. So nope, nothing. So striking out left and right, looking everywhere. Came down here and checked in the basement several times. I went back, double, triple checked several areas. Checked the bureau next to my bed, because sometimes at night when I take stuff out of my pocket, I put it there on the little bureau and forget. Nothing. So I start thinking, man, I really did it now. I'm going to have to buy a new one of these. I found a source on the internet. Turns out it's like $30 they want for this little, I think it was the packing nut and the needle, which I would have needed both because I had lost both. And then my wife saw me getting all keyed up about missing this thing and how it was driving me crazy. So we're sitting there one night, and she's over at the dinner table with the 3 boys, and she said, "Did you ask these 3?" And I'm thinking, well, my 6-year-old or my 7-year-old, if they spotted this, they might have picked it up and done something with it. So I figured, well, I don't know how I'm going to even explain to them what this thing looks like. So I draw a picture. I wish I hadn't thrown the picture away because I'd show you. I draw the picture of the thing. I do a pretty good drawing of it. And I go tell them, I said, look, boys, this is what I'm looking for. And as soon as I show it to my 9-year-old, he says, oh, Daddy, I saw that. That was over in your trailer. I saw that in the trailer when you opened the side door. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right, okay, sure. Well, I said, you know what? Whichever you 3 boys finds this thing, I'll take you to breakfast as a special treat. Because they love it when I take them to breakfast. Well, especially if it's like something where their other brothers don't get to do it. It's special. So anyways, thinking, hey, buying one of them breakfast is a small investment compared to the $30 plus shipping to get one of these things. So what ends up happening is he's convincing me that he's seen it out there, and I'm like, well, I went in there and looked in that whole area 2-3 times, but then it occurred to me I didn't look around on the ground right near there. So I immediately go outside. It's already starting to get a little bit dark. It's dusk out. I walk over, I look down on the ground, and almost immediately I spot it. Right there on the gravel driveway, just to the left of that door opening. At some point, must have gone into there, got something out, and knocked it out onto the ground, and it got either kicked or moved over. But, so that's my little story about how that ended up being found, thanks to my 9-year-old, who I now owe a breakfast. Okay, so now I push that down into there with a small screwdriver, and it's a little out of round, but it will be alright as soon as I put this in. So I'm going to put this in. I backed this out pretty far. I put this in, and I'm going to tighten the packing nut down, snug it up. Now remember when I originally was taking this out, before I took it out, I purposely drove it all the way until it lightly seated, counting how many turns it took to get in, get seated, so that I would know what the setting was. And I was kind of shocked that it was 5 turns. Well, I just did that, drove it until it lightly seated, and backed it out 5 turns. I don't know if you could see, but the tip of the needle's not even in the orifice. So clearly that was not set right. So we're going to have to come up with some other ideas. I'm thinking 1.5 turns to start. Alright, so I got that set at 1.5 turns. We'll worry about, if we get it started, we'll worry about resetting that after it's running. Oh, I just want to mention, I put a light film of oil on the shaft of the needle so that as it was going through that grommet, it wouldn't be binding on it, so that as I turn it, it'll give a little bit of a slip instead of trying to tear up that grommet. Alright, I made sure this passage is clear, so now I'm going to put in a little plug. In case you're ever trying to ID one of these carburetors, when you see this little brass tag, this is your actual carburetor number. And in this case, it's an international part number that's on there. Let's see if I can see it. It's 361525 R as in Romeo 92. And I already checked online. That is a good part number. Now I have this very fine, soft brass bristle brush, and I'm going to run that down and just give a light little polish to that seat down there for the float needle. Yeah, I like how that looks much better now. Alright, I've reinstalled the float, put the needle in, and then put the float hinge pin through. And now there's the question of setting the float height. Now, probably going to take a little bit of research to find that float height, if I can find it at all. So, in the meantime, I did install the idle air-fuel mixture screw, or the low-speed air-fuel mixture screw. And what I did was I tightened that until it lightly seated, and I backed it out 1.5 turns. I'm going to use 1.5 turns as my starting point on here also, and I'll tune that after I get the engine running. So for now, I guess that's gonna be it, unless I find that information rather quickly. I won't be back down tonight.